Hi, so today I want to talk about motivations to recover, and one of the ones that I think about quite a lot is that sense of trying to escape the isolation that comes with an eating disorder. And one of the things that I've recognised in me is that my eating disorder has ended up sometimes making me feel like I'm living the life of a very elderly person. In my kind of world of PR work, I write a lot of the time about the problem that we have in this country in particular around social isolation, and talking about elderly people living on their own, often in sort of remote communities, and how after a certain age, if your family's perhaps more extended, and we all live in far-flung places these days, we don't kind of grow up in the same sort of villages and towns necessarily that our elderly relatives do. So in lots of cases, elderly people then find themselves in latter years that they might become more isolated and more sort of housebound. And I think it's worth remembering that for somebody that is entrenched in an eating disorder, it's, just looking outside now, it's like you're trapping yourself inside. There's like a barrier to you living that real world. And some of that is about kind of physicality and energy levels, and some of that's about a kind of an emotional close down that makes it harder and harder to socialise and to really be present and to really embrace life fully. And I know from my own experience that my isolation comes in part because of the ritualistic habits. I do get fearful around food, and my days then therefore become about me thinking about when am I going to eat or when am I not going to eat, or how is it going to be if I put myself in that social situation. So definitely an isolation comes from the sort of physical nature of being able to immerse yourself with friendship groups and family and just live real life, because in real life lots of people go out and eat, lots of people have social time that involves eating and drinking, but not just that in that kind of practical, physical, literal sense around going out and immersing yourself. There's also that shrunken mind that really reduces your world when you're entrenched in an eating disorder. So the isolation comes in part because anorexia, in my case, anorexia makes itself your friend, and the dialogue is almost suggesting that actually who else would you possibly need in your life other than to have this awful eating disorder. And it almost instigates a kind of agoraphobic approach to living a real life. And I know even when it's come to seeing really close friends and family, the more time I have spent on my own and the more time I have spent in the company of the voice that is anorexia, so much harder do I find it to immerse myself in that social world that would come from being free of anorexia and an eating disorder. So for me, one of the motivations to recover is, to get right out there and to live in the real world and to be able to embrace a fuller life and not just this half life that I think so many of us that when we have an eating disorder do fall into the trap of being. And that's before you even get into the discussion around what sort of energy, power and wakeful capacity do you have to embrace life as fully as other people would be doing. So recovery motivation, one of them is definitely for me trying to escape that social isolation that I think comes with an eating disorder. And I'd love to know other people's experiences around that and about how much they feel they've closed their life off through having wedded themselves to their eating disorder. So thanks for listening, and until next time.